You've seen them, right? They just seem to top up in cities everywhere, almost overnight. These sleek electric scooters from LSSC. They sold us this dream of a super cheap, fun, and green way to get around town. But behind all that flashy marketing and the easy-to-use app, there was a really dark secret, one that ended up costing users millions. So let's get into it and unmask what was really going on with the LSSC scooter scams.
So that brings us to the big question here. Was this actually the future of commuting? A cool innovation that just had some early problems? Or was it something way more calculated? A slick, sophisticated con job aimed at consumers from the very start? That's what we're going to find out.
Okay, first things first. Let's rewind and look at the dream that LSSC was selling. And it was a really powerful one. This vision of a city with no more traffic jams, less pollution, all thanks to this awesome little revolution on two wheels.
The whole appeal really boiled down to three things that are just impossible to resist. One, it was cheap, way cheaper than a cab. Two, it was fun. I mean, who doesn't want to zip through the city on a scooter? And three, it was eco-friendly, so you could feel good about it. That was the magic combination that got thousands and thousands of people to download the app.
And they were so good at making you feel safe. Their promises were so specific. Just $1 to unlock. I mean, how can you say no to that? Pennies per minute. Sounds incredible. They told you, go anywhere, anytime. Your data is safe with us, and you're making the greenest city commute. Every single one of these points was designed to just erase any doubt you might have.
But it didn't take long for that shiny, perfect image to start showing some serious cracks. For a whole lot of people, that dream ride started feeling more like a total nightmare, and the first hints of trouble started bubbling up online.
And then comments like this one started popping up. Just think about that for a second. You take a quick 10-minute trip, you're expecting it to cost, what, maybe $5–6? And then you get a bill for $150? That's not just a little off, that's a huge shock. And that was the moment people started realizing something was really, really wrong here.
And look, this wasn't just a couple of isolated cases. As you can see from this chart, thousands of complaints started flooding social media and consumer websites. Almost half of them were about being straight up overcharged. Another 30% were about hidden fees that came out of nowhere. And then you have all the privacy concerns and the fact that there was basically no customer support. It was a clear pattern.
And this is where we get to the heart of it. These problems, they weren't bugs. They weren't mistakes. They were features. This was how the system was designed to work. So let's pull back the curtain and break down exactly how this scam operated.
It was really a three-part system. First, the pricing was totally misleading. That $1 unlock fee, that was just the bait to get you on the hook. It's a classic move. Second, they hit you with what are called phantom charges. And we'll dig into that in a second. And third, while all this was going on, they were busy collecting your location data and selling it off without you really knowing.
So it's really important to understand this term, phantom charges. These are basically unexpected fees that just appear on your bill for things you never explicitly agreed to pay for. For LSC, this was stuff like a service fee, or a peak hours surcharge, or a convenience fee, all designed to quietly pump up your final bill.
This slide just lays out the deception perfectly. Promise pennies per minute. Reality, a complicated pricing system that could shoot up without any warning. Promise your data is safe. Reality, your location data was sold to marketing companies. Promise go anywhere. Reality, you'd get hit with huge fines for parking just a few feet outside of these tiny, poorly marked zones. So, what was the real-world damage from all this? Well, the financial fallout was just huge, and it showed what the true cost of a supposedly cheap ride really was.
Get this, in just its first year of operation, it's estimated that users lost a grand total of $15 million to LSSC's scammy practices. $15 million. That's not a rounding error, that's an incredible amount of money, all built on tricking people.
And this bar chart really puts it all into perspective. So a normal 15-minute ride was advertised at about $4.50. Okay, seems fair. But the actual average cost that people ended up paying was closer to $22. And in the worst cases, that same ride could cost an unbelievable $75. The difference is just staggering.
But the damage wasn't just about the money, It caused a ton of stress for people who were suddenly hit with these giant bills they couldn't afford. And it also just shattered public trust, not just in LSSC, but in the entire idea of micromobility. It made everyone suspicious, even of the good companies.
So the most important question is, how do we stop this from happening to us?
The whole LSSC disaster is actually a great learning experience. Let's go over the key lessons and the red flags you can look for to protect your money and your data.
All right, so here's what to watch out for. Be really careful with vague pricing, like when it says rides from $1. That's a classic hook. Be suspicious if an app asks for permissions it doesn't need, like access to your contacts. If the terms and conditions are super long and confusing, that's usually on purpose. Always check online reviews for people mentioning surprise fees. And here's a big one. If it's almost impossible to find a way to contact a real human for help, that is a massive red flag.
And this whole thing leaves us with one last, pretty important question to think about. The LSSC scam worked because it tapped into our desire for things to be fast, easy, and convenient. So it makes you wonder, in our rush to make life easier, what are we willing to overlook? What fine print are we scrolling past? What permissions are we just tapping agree to without a second thought? It's definitely something to keep in mind.